Hi, my name is Phillip Ronald, and we're here at Riverbend Orchards today. It's a beautiful day at the end of May, and my wife and I bought this farm in April of 2009, and so we've been at it here for about 12 years. Keeps us really busy from April to October.
We were kind of looking for different options, and we did find the farm, and we came to look at it, and it was pretty much ready for Saskatoons, but Phillip has a desire to plant unique things, and so we filled it with lots of different things that are probably unique to most of Manitoba.
I mean, even where we're standing right now, this was just a field of grass when we bought the place. There wasn't a single fruit tree here, so we feel like we've left some of our fingerprints on it in a good way. So we're standing in a 4-year-old plantation of haskap, also known as honeyberry. What we have in this field is a mixture of aurora and tundra. And we're using aurora as the primary variety, and we have chosen to use tundra as a pollinizer. They flower at the same time, they're genetically compatible, and by planting them together, they both produce fruit in season. So the bees come along here in the spring and they vector the pollen from plant to plant. These plants are very hardy. They were developed in zone 2 conditions, temperatures that routinely go down to minus 40 Celsius in the winter, and so we have no questions at all about hardiness. What has also drawn us to haskap is just its general weather resistance, able to tolerate minus 7 degrees Celsius in bloom and still produce fruit. The fact that it doesn't have any prevailing pest or disease problems means that we can grow it spray-free, which is really desirable for the end user. Saskatoon is very popular in the prairies. It's what a lot of people remember from their childhood. Very sweet, healthy fruit that can be used to make so many wonderful things. This is a cultivar called Smoky. Believe it or not, the original plant is way up near Beaver Lodge, Alberta. And it was one that was marked out as having very sweet fruit, and it's been mass propagated. So the field that we're standing in right now is about 3 acres, and they're all Smoky Saskatoon. A lot of the orchard care has been, learned through trial and error, through book reading. But I would say what I received the most from my father that has helped me here is just a love for plant material and how to care for plants. As children, we used to pick fruit, we used to preserve that fruit, and we learned to harvest it, and we certainly weren't strangers to fruit trees and how to work with them. These are cherries that were developed at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon. They're called the Passion series. Carmine Jewel, while it doesn't have the largest fruit, it is probably the most precocious year over year. It bears the highest quantity of fruit, so best yield per bush. These are sour cherries or tart cherries. Make a wonderful pie, wonderful jam or spread. Often tell people there's another step with these. Picking is step number 1, pitting is step number 2. And it's a lot of work to pit cherries, but many people feel it's worth the effort. We have white-tailed deer that come through our orchard all the time, and they're not so much interested in the fruit as they are in this new growth. And you can see here the growth that's been produced so far this year, and next year's flowers and fruit are being produced on this new growth. So it's very important to us to protect the new stems and the shoots of both cherries and apples, which deer seem to really enjoy. The cultivars of plum that we grow here at our orchard, we have Pembina, we have Toka, we have Brook Gold, and we also have Tecumseh. Now, plum pollination is complex. It's not as simple as just having two distinct cultivars or varieties. You also have to look at the genetic background of those plants. So this is Pembina plum here. You can see the fruit size, dark red skin. Often has what we call a blue bloom on it, which is kind of just like a waxy layer. You can rub that off with your finger. Very sweet flesh, large pit on the inside. These are the Toka plum here. Not quite ripe, you can see, but very flavorful when they're ready with that distinctive bubblegum taste to them. And then Brook Gold. Again, very large fruit, more of an orangey colored skin. Very sweet flesh. The problem is you cannot have two hybrid plums and expect to see fruit. So if I was to plant Pembina and say Tecumseh, or Pembina and Brook Red, I still won't have any fruit even though I have two distinct cultivars. I have to introduce something truly different. And that's where Toka comes in here. It's a complex plum hybrid. It's got at least 3 different species in its heritage. And it does a really nice job serving as a pollinizer for either Pembina or Tecumseh or any of those hybrid plums. With the prairie apples, we see kind of 3 distinct classes that we often refer to. Early season, mid-season, and late season, and that refers to their time of ripening. We have varieties like Norland that ripen incredibly early. In fact, this year they were ready towards the end of July, early August. We would consider that an early season apple. We have a large group of cultivars that are mid-season, things like Norkent and Gemini and Goodland and Prairie Magic. So this is the Norkent apple, which, as I mentioned, is more of a mid-season, and again, fully ripe at this point. And again, you can see the seeds being really nice and brown there. This fruit is at its peak in terms of ripeness, nice and sweet, good for picking, good for eating, good for processing. We have about 300 apple trees at our farm. We use a mixture of varieties simply because we need cross-pollination. Apples, of course, are self-incompatible, so a single apple tree will not set fruit unless it's received pollen from a tree of a different kind, and by that we mean a different variety, a different cultivar. So we typically have a mixture in our orchard down the rows. The bees are vectoring that pollen early in the spring and allowing fruit set to take place. We would pick most of our apples in mid to late August. Within a month or so, we have either sold or processed the vast majority of our apples. When I went to university post-secondary, I started off in microbiology, and I really thought that would be where I'd end up as a medical microbiologist. And I did 2 full years in that program, and I realized, this just wasn't what fascinated me, and it wasn't what brought a lot of happiness. And so it was at that point that I transited into horticulture at the University of Manitoba and never really looked back from that point. I'm really happy where we ended up today with a fruit farm and being able to teach horticulture too at the university. So I like the variety that's in my life and the different jobs that I have.